Hey everyone, Julian here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to master your track and get it from this to this. I'm going to show you guys how to make a really clean, but still very hard-hitting and powerful master right in the box with just Ableton effects. And yeah, to go along with this video, I just dropped a new mastering rack, actually. It's a little plugin for Ableton. You can see it right here. What it is you can see, it's got a bunch of controls that allow you to master your track really effectively without overdoing it or underdoing it. I think a lot of times mastering tools can be very finicky, right? Like, it's very easy to take like a mastering compressor and overdo it in a matter of seconds. The goal with this is that you can, really tweak these knobs and really work with everything. Like, if I set everything back to default here, but while you're tweaking the knobs, you're not blasting it too hard. It still is like workable. So you can kind of really dial in the master a lot easier with this, I think. And it's also a really powerful tool, to just make a track quickly and be able to use this. So I'll show you like a little demo here. So this is completely clean. When you have it set like this, nothing's happening. And yeah, you can hear it just allows you to really dial in the master and get a master that's very clean and powerful and punchy while still getting, that fullness that you need that's not going to like overdo it. So yeah, link to this at the top of the description. It's literally just $5. If you guys enjoy these videos, definitely go grab it. I don't make a whole lot off of them, but with these mastering racks and different sample packs and stuff like this, I'm able to keep going and keep bringing you guys new videos every single day. So yeah, thank you so much for the support, guys, and let's dive into the video. So I'm going to actually turn this off for now, and I'm going to show you my process if I was doing this from scratch. So what I would start with here is we're going to just right off the bat use a little bit of utility. And I don't always do this, especially when it comes to techno. You don't always want to push the width of your track, but a lot of times just doing a little bit of this at the end, like that much, can really help. Or alternatively, if you need your track to be a little bit more mono compatible, you could just take the width. And again, we're not doing more than like 20% or 30% of a change. Like this at 75%, essentially that means that we're making it 25% less wide. And yeah, it's just something you can do at the end. I think this one we're going to make it actually a little bit like that. After that, what I would do is I would get an EQ8. And this is just going to do like a little bit of a low end boost, a little bit of a high end boost. And then we're going to put this down -2. So here's without this. And then with it. So it's a very subtle thing. But what it does is it just kind of balances the track a little bit more. Because essentially like the way dance music works, it's kind of like the low end and the high end are going to be the loudest, most powerful, punchy things. So if you just do a little boost, like it's literally 1.61 dB of gain, that's 1.36, just that little boost just makes those ranges a little bit louder. And then like the mid-range, and it's going to make that like little tiny 5% difference. That's going to make the whole track that much better. And you don't always need this. It's really just coming down to like each specific case. But I do think it helps. And then the reason why I turned the gain down over here is just simply because this, obviously you're boosting here, so it's going to add a little bit of gain. So that just kind of makes it even with what it was beforehand, but now it's just got the low end boosted. Then after that, I would grab another EQ8. And what this is going to do is we're just going to have one cut at 20, let's do like 25 hertz. And then one cut up here at 20 kilohertz. So we're going to do 20, 1, 2, 3. There we go. So the reason why we're doing this is because human hearing, as you know, kind of doesn't extend past these points, essentially. Like, we can't hear anything lower than 20 hertz, and we can't hear anything higher than 20,000 hertz, aka 20 kilohertz. The problem is, those frequencies are still present in your mix, especially like let's say you're making a rumble kick, like, you're distorting reverb. Like, at the end of the day, like, that's going to create some really nasty low frequencies. And the thing is, you're not really going to hear those. Like, you can't hear the stuff that this is cutting out. But if you have a sub, or if you're listening on like a very loud system, like when you go to play it in a club, these frequencies in the low end, you're still actually going to feel. There's going to be like a weird rumbling in everybody's feet in the club or in the rave or whatever. So that's why we cut that, because that's going to just make it kind of a lot cleaner there. And you can even do a little bit higher here. Like, it just kind of gives your track a little bit more air and kind of like cleanliness. And then the high end boost, same deal. Like, those aren't frequencies that we're really going to hear. But then what can happen, and this is also happening with the low end, is if you have those high end frequencies coming through and they're really punchy and powerful, and even if you're not hearing them, then when you go later to do, like we're about to do a little bit of compression and stuff like that, then when you go to do that, it's going to get in the way of that. Like the compression is, you're not going to be able to compress as much or as powerfully, so it's just kind of like, making sure that it's only the ranges that we're actually hearing. Plus, something I think about a lot of times is like, humans can't hear those frequencies higher than 20 kilohertz. But what if you just have like your cat and like, right, like you hear a track, it just sounds normal. But then your cat hears there's like a super high frequency in there that like we just can't hear. You know what I mean? So do it for your cat. Then I usually use a little bit of saturation. And the saturator can work really well as like an overall glue, because essentially the way saturation works is it's just adding harmonics on top of things. Like when you get that big over distorted sound, that's just a very extremely harmonically rich sound. Like kind of think about it like a deep fried meme picture, right? Like when you see a picture that's been through like 50,000 Instagram filters, the original picture's already there. It just has so much like content on top of it that's essentially deep fried it. Same thing here. So this is how we want to think about the saturator, because essentially what separates these different elements, every sound is a collection of harmonics, right? And each one has harmonics in different ranges. So essentially, if we have a tool that adds harmonics on top of things, we can sort of bridge the gap between, say, like the kick and like the mid-range percussion or something like that, because we're adding harmonics onto the kick and onto that mid-range percussion at the same time. So they're going to kind of have some more like matching stuff. I think you kind of get what I'm saying, but yeah, so I like to use this. It also just makes things a bit fatter too. And usually we'll do like, you can crank it up if you want to. Like I've done that much before. I think the key here though is going to be in these modes. Like if you go here to sinoid fold and like turn off the color, that can work really well for this. Like, I'll show you what I mean. Like, because if you flip through these, you'll get different things. Oh, and also, you have to turn down the output a little bit to match what you're doing over here. Alright, cool. So that sounded good here. But yeah, you can see with those different modes, like, it sounds different, and you can get, it's obviously still the same kind of like distortion, saturation. But this way, you can kind of get different flavors of it, and you can tweak it for every track, too. That's a nice thing, because like, that medium curve sounded pretty good on some frequencies here. I probably wouldn't use it in this track, but I guarantee you, like, there's another track I'll be mastering at some point that needs that. So, yeah, and then with the output, again, it's the same thing as the EQ. It's just kind of like making sure, because if you don't do that, like if we had this one there and we have this one there, it's gonna start clipping. And it's not because these are making things distorted, or it's just like we are adding a little bit of gain here and there. So obviously, and it also helps to have a pre-master that's hitting like a little bit quieter too. Like I'm gonna bring that up. Cool. So now that we have this, we're ready for a little bit of compression. And there's a few different ways that you can use compression here. I'm gonna use some multiband compression today, and I think multiband compression is something that a lot of people really don't know what they're doing when they're working with it, and they think they do, and they do a lot of stuff, and it can quickly mess up your track. So you really got to know what you're doing, and you really got to be careful with it. I think less is always more with this. Like, if you get to a point while you're working with it, and you'll see what I'm talking about, but if you get to a point where you're working with it, and you're like, okay, this sounds pretty good, I could push it a little bit more, but this sounds good, it's hitting hard, that's where you want to stop, right? So essentially, the way that this is working is these are kind of like, you see we have the highs, the mids, and the lows, and then these are basically just kind of adjusting the levels in that, like the compression. I think it's like, that's the threshold, and then this is the compression ratio. So we can go, you can see if we go from like a lower ratio up to a higher one. You can hear our low end getting like a lot more full. And you can really hear this in the mids too. Like if I take that. And yeah, so you can see, you really just have to tweak it with your ear. But this is just adding a bit of like kind of balance to the overall track. And then we'll do the highs too. And you can listen for it too, because you can hear like as I turn that high one up, it's letting the hi-hat in and out. This is a really powerful tool. And then typically what you're going to want to do is turn up the attack a little bit as well on all of these, because that's essentially like how long it's taking for the compression to kick in. So you can kind of clean it out and make it not mess up the transients of your sounds if you do this. And then the last step to this is we're going to turn the gain down a little. And then we're going to blend this. You really don't want this to just be like 100% wet, because obviously like it does a lot to the sound, right? But if you do this and then blend it, it can work really well as a nice like exciter essentially, and just kind of like bring out a bit more sound. And we're kind of tweaking as we go here. But yeah, so you can hear what that is doing. Like again, it's just going to add like a nice layer on top of that to kind of balance the mix out and also give it a little bit more like excitement and just bring it out more. And the last thing we're doing here is we're going to take a limiter. And we are going to set the look ahead a little bit faster, or a little bit like longer actually. Again, just think of that as like the attack on the compressor, because the limiter is just a compressor at the end of the day. But essentially this is like the same thing. It's just making it so it's not going to flatten out the transients too much, and like your kick and your drums will still have a lot of punch to them. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just take the gain, and you notice, so right now we're not clipping, right? And you shouldn't be clipping at this point. This isn't a limiter for the sake of stopping the track from clipping. This is just to boost certain things past 0 dB while still like keeping it all under control, if that makes any sense. Because like, obviously this is hitting 0 right now. And it's right up there. Maybe if we like, we're hitting 0, but obviously that's not quite as fat as like a lot of other tracks, right? And when you listen to tracks on Beatport, you're probably wondering why that's not quite as loud as they are. This is it right here. This is just that last thing that you can do to really just, again, like pull the track up a little bit. And you don't want to do too much of it. The key is to do it so that you don't notice it, but it's just giving you like the proper volume. And now our track is hitting 0. It's very fat, but also you'll notice there's still a bit of dynamics there. And obviously, like with modern techno, it's not so much of a thing. There you are. And then you just want to make sure you don't get to that point where it's too crunchy, because if you turn this up too much, so you can get really crunchy. So you want to do, about like that much. But that is how you're going to do it. That is all you really need to know for mastering. You know, it's not actually as hard as people make it out to be. I do think that mastering is an art that can be mastered, no pun intended, and there's a lot of art to it that you can spend a lot of time on. But in terms of just like understanding what's going on in mastering and being able to do it effectively for your own music, not that hard. You know, you just gotta be able to do this kind of stuff and work with it. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get my ultimate mastering rack right in the top of the description for just $5. This really helps support me. Plus, you get a really, really solid resource to be able to master your own tracks quickly and very effectively with a strong and powerful master that you can also work with a lot of different tracks. You know, this is designed to work with any track. You can literally just drop it on there and make it super, super fat, super hard hitting, and still clean. It's not going to be clipping. Again, without it, I want that. So yeah, link is at the top of the description. Thank you so much for the support, guys. It really helps keep me going. If you guys enjoyed these videos, yeah, thanks, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.